guys, and welcome to the latest edition of Train with Honour TV. It's been a little while since we've had a guest on, and I promise you now, guys, you're in for a treat today. We've got a fantastic guest. He's played League of Ireland football for a majority of his career, and he's here to tell us a bit about his story and his future plans. It's Mr. Conor English. Welcome to the show, buddy. How are you doing?
Hi Chris, how are you? Yeah, good, good. I suppose it's been a tricky time.
Hmm.
Personally, being very tricky, but I suppose I get into them kind of details later on in the chat. But yeah, no, happy to be on.
No, it's brilliant to have you, and it's going to be really insightful for a lot of the guys because we do get a combination of fitness professionals, current coaches, and aspiring footballers, and obviously we're in the COVID situation at the moment, and different players from different levels, obviously experiencing different times. FA Premier League are currently playing, National League, they're not playing. I mean, how is it for you at the moment? And is the LOI still going ahead at the moment, or are they not playing right now?
Yeah, well, it's starting. The first division in Ireland is starting Friday week, so
Okay.
pre-season has been as normal. I suppose obviously restrictions, everything, the protocols, all that is still in place. But yeah, and the Premier Division is starting this coming Friday, so
Something to
it's
look forward
all yeah, it's all it's all kind of normality at that level. But obviously with lower league level like junior football and stuff, intermediate football, that's just put on a stop for now.
Yeah, and it's really really hard, isn't it? And one thing that is hard is actually being able to get into the game and play at a decent standard. And fortunately, you managed to do that with Wexford. Was it five years you were at Wexford, and scored some important goals there as well. Do you just want to sort of talk, give everyone a bit of an introduction to sort of your journey into the game, sort of how you got spotted, and um, you know the day-to-day life, I guess, when before
Yeah,
obviously COVID hit.
yeah. Well, I guess I suppose I always had a love for the game. Like sometimes I think to myself, do I know anything else? Apart from football? Um, it's just whether I kind of have an interest now of maybe with a little bit of more experience on my head. I'm kind of thinking down the coaching side of things in a few years, and
Yeah.
obviously that's with my past playing career, like and up to date. But yeah, I play with I started playing with my local club, Bridge United in Kilkenny, and played there all my underage football. Then sometimes you just have to kind of make the decision to make a move and try progress your career, because I think when you're younger and it's a thing that like every young person experience that plays sport, no matter what sport it is, they want to play at the highest level or the most capable level they can play at. I think that's a it's like a dream for young players, but it's you love to put it into reality as well. But yeah, and then I made the switch from my local club Bridge United to a big club in Kilkenny, Evergreen, and I think I was about 17 or 18. And then from there, I my personal ambition, like I think everybody likes to say, "Oh, I want to become a professional footballer. I want to play in England." Especially being from Ireland,
Yeah.
it's the main goal. Um, but I had this kind of like obsession of just playing League of Ireland and just seeing obviously then where I could go from there. Obviously, then when you get to that level, it's just the mentality. You just want to kind of set the bar higher and higher, and you're just still not content in yourself.
That's really good.
Um,
It's great that because obviously you're setting one step at a time there, aren't you? So you're still ambitious, but you're not saying, right, I want to go straight to play for Man United, or I want to go straight and play in internationally. You're giving yourself realistic goals there, and I guess that's been really important mentally for you to achieve what the standard you got to, right?
Yeah, like it has been. Like I think when I was underage, I always wanted to do well with my local club, win the leagues, the cups, the stuff like that. And having done that, then I kind of always said to myself, oh, I'd love to establish myself as a good junior Premier Division soccer player. Um, and I went to Evergreen then, and I was there for just under a season. And because the junior season and the League of Ireland season are two different times of the year, the window opened up, and yeah, I got the opportunity to sign for a League of Ireland club, and obviously, I just really didn't have to think twice because
Yeah.
at a young age, and it's everything you kind of wanted. You just sacrifice anything and everything you kind of do in general life just to play at that level.
Yeah, and that's a key word. Key word being sacrifice, kind of that you made there. What sort of sacrifices did you make to go and play in the LOI? I mean, what was the big draw to play in the League of Ireland from playing at Evergreen that identified with you that you could progress further with that club? And what sacrifices did you have to make?
Yeah, well, like I think what a lot of people and I've chatted to a couple of people and friends that I've played with League of Ireland, and I genuinely, and I think a lot of people will relate to this in other sports. I don't think unless you've experienced it, I genuinely don't think people will understand. Like, especially having a passion for the game, um, and wanting to play as high as you can. Like you do get older the more you play. So like
Yeah,
you're sacrificing then obviously your education, which mine took a bit of a hit when you're obviously wanting to commit to play football. You're sacrificing jobs. You're trying to look for the right job. Even though it's only a part-time football, you're trying to look for the right job to play the football. So you're not actually going into a job you might be necessarily happy doing. Um, you're pretty much everything. Like your social life's a big thing, I think, because you're training so much, you're working on top of it, then you're trying to recover from games. Like your life literally just revolves around the sport, really.
God, yeah, and I suppose that's when you really get to know yourself, kind of, don't you? Really, because obviously with you making your sacrifices, you literally obviously you've got the coaching staff, the support, you've got your family and your close friends and your network there, but it takes a big strain on you mentally and physically, doesn't it? I mean, what sort of lessons did you learn about yourself when you made that step up?
Yeah, like I I didn't see them at the time, to be honest. But now when I reflect, obviously with a bit of more knowledgeable head, now that I reflect on the past few years, I kind of do say to myself, not with regret, but I do say to myself, Jesus, I could have done this differently, that differently. Um, I guess it's as I was touching on, the sacrifice is a tough one because it does interfere with every part of your daily life. And like I suppose the struggles I kind of had was I used to put so much pressure on myself performance wise, whether it was training, whether it was in games. And to be honest, like not that I still do, but definitely there's a percentage of it there, a high percentage that I would. And I think that what a lot of people forget is that takes up a lot of mental exhaustion
100%.
without even playing physically. Like, and then when the two of them are obviously not going together, it's a different ball game altogether.
Oh, I can imagine
Um,
it. I mean, how do you cope with that? Because obviously you're gonna have your teammates around you. Obviously, you're gonna be handling not just the pressure from the terraces, but the pressure, maybe the indirect. I don't know if pressure is the right word, but there's going to be a certain expectation on yourself from fans, from your club mates, and obviously the biggest critic is going to be yourself. I mean, how how do you overcome that, or what sort of strategies do you sort of adapt? Is it a case of you get on with it and carry on, or do you reach out and talk to people um, about how you're feeling?
Yeah, like it's very tough, and I'd always class myself as being mentally strong, in a lot of different areas. But like, and this goes for every walk of life. I genuinely think like there's only so much one person can take, and there's only so much um someone can do. Like what I don't think people understand is from the outside looking in is the sacrifice you do make
Yeah,
to be playing at that level, um, and to try perform and try obviously achieve. I think that's the only thing they look at is how is so and so getting on. Um, is he scoring goals? Is he
yeah,
performing? Is he, to be honest, so basic? Is he in the team? Is he in the starting 11? Oh, he's on the bench today. I think people forget. Like, I remember my first season at Wexford, like making the bench because we had such a big and strong squad was an achievement in itself. Do you
yeah.
know, because the competition was so strong. But I think people like they don't quite understand that. They
It's a
don't quite
big
understand
squad,
the
isn't it?
sacrifice to even. Uh,
It's a big squad, isn't it? And you know the man. I suppose the manager's obviously got his ideas of rotation, and you know you might be a better fit against Derry, for example, and then someone else might be a better fit against against Dublin, or we just don't know. I guess the people don't know what's going on indoors and what's been discussed between management, players, and staff, do they really? And
no, they don't.
yeah,
And like, I guess, look, I think a lot of sports people and players they experience that, like, and it happens a lot in Ireland. Obviously, in my case, playing with Wexford, there's travel involved. There's you know, obviously getting in from work, dropping your bags, picking up
yeah,
your gear bag, you're going to training. Like all this time is consumed by it. Like yeah, I love doing it. Don't get me wrong, but like I don't love traveling, and I don't
no,
necessarily. I don't love like having to work all day and then um traveling an hour and a half to training and the same back. Like I enjoy the 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 kind of crack with the lads and the stuff and training and just playing football, I guess. But and I think you always have that thing in your head as well that right, I'm at Wexford and I've touched on it there a couple of moments ago is I want to play higher again and I want to do well here and see can I get a move and so on. And especially in the last year or so, that was a big, big area in my thinking.
yeah. Wow. So there is a hell of a lot that you got to consider there, because obviously when it comes to your recovery and you're keeping your energy levels up, if you're working throughout the day, it's near enough a 24-hour job, Connor, isn't it? Really, when you look at it, because
Yeah.
obviously you got to make sure you're fueled properly, you're recovering properly. You've got to have a real responsibility, haven't you? Really, you got to really be able to look after yourself. Make sure you got that structure in your day to ensure that you've got every last key thing in place. And yeah, it's a really when it comes. I mean, when it comes to travel and things like that, what sort of experiences have you been through in terms of you know how has it impacted your love for the game? How has it impacted your relationships with friends, family, and teammates?
Yeah, it's been very difficult because like we train Monday, Wednesday, play of a Friday, and then possibly train of a Sunday, maybe every fortnight train of a Sunday.
Yeah,
So if you're working your normal job, which in the case of playing for Wexford, you do have to work pretty much full time.
yeah,
So if you're working 8 to 5, you're getting in the door, in my case, traveling from half 5 to probably half 6 or 7, training from half 7 to maybe 9 o'clock and coming home. But then when you get home, it's kind of it's not necessarily the training and the that has the main impact. It's kind of I've missed out on so much. I
yeah,
might stay up for a few hours. I'm going to watch a bit of telly. I'm going to, whatever. And then all of a sudden, you're up for the same thing the following morning, and like it just becomes a domino effect and a bad routine.
Yeah,
And I think there's only so much one person can do or take, and eventually you just run into a wall. And it happened to me my first spell at Wexford. And not many people know the main reasons why I left, but we went Premier Division, and it was, yeah, it was just too much. It was just way too much. And it's very hard to accept wanting to leave because I wanted to play at that level so badly.
yeah.
But I had to make the choice because I was starting to suffer.
Yeah. Well, firstly, thank you for sharing that, because it does take a lot of courage to admit that, first and foremost, that that you are making the struggle, and hopefully this is going to highlight to somebody watching, exactly, that might be going through exactly the same thing as what you've done, and it takes a lot of guts to do that. So credit to you for holding your hands up with that. Um, because it is a big sacrifice. Like you say, sacrifice is a big word that keeps popping up every now and then. It's the sacrifice for the commitment to chase your dream. But again, being a realist and having to work your 9 to 5 or your 8 till 4s or what have you, and sacrifice those bits of time, and it does take a lot of courage to do that. So yeah, I commend you for that, and hopefully that lesson that you've shared with us then will hopefully be able to help somebody else. But in terms of moving forward now, I mean, obviously we moved into the pandemic, and obviously football's had to stop. And what sort of impact did that have in terms of yourself? Because you still with the club at the beginning of the pandemic, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So would you say that the pandemic may have had a bit of an impact? And obviously, a lot of clubs, in terms of the financials, in terms of what you can and can't do, um, is obviously going to have been impacted with that. I mean, in terms of your mindset, I mean, I know obviously we spoke previously, and you still want to progress and what have you. How has it sort of impacted you mentally in terms of overcoming the barriers that we've currently got? Because obviously the season's starting next week. Um, what what's been your motivation to keep going through this pandemic, to take that next step up, or to get back on that ladder?
Yeah, well, it's it's quite it's a thing that it's been a really tough, I suppose, personally, a really tough 6 or 8 months
Yeah,
um for me. But I, as I touched on, like I do like to think I'm mentally strong, and always do want to. I look at it as kind of maybe small and slow steps, and yeah, like I personally felt like I was playing probably my best football to date when the first pandemic came around. So that was near the back end of last season,
yeah,
um, which is obviously quite a bit of time ago now. But I was confident in my football. I was delighted because, to be honest, with the restrictions and stuff that were going on over here, I wasn't working, so I didn't have the stress of traveling to work. I could maybe enjoy the summer. I could play, I could play football like quite happily, train properly, recover properly, pretty much treat it as a full time job,
yeah, mate. I
because
bet you enjoyed that, right?
yeah, yeah, it was, it was actually something that never never got the opportunity to do before, because the League of Ireland was, it was necessary, and it was categorized as necessary, so that continued while my work wasn't. But yeah, I then, come the back end of last season, got a concussion, and a couple of weeks later after that, it was quite a bad concussion.
Yeah,
Put me out for quite a number of weeks. Got a second concussion. So yeah, from there, to be honest, from there to this date that I'm talking to you,
Mm.
It's been a completely different kind of experience, and kind of, yeah, life changing, I guess.
Jeez, I can imagine. Because obviously, I mean, we look at the media now, and obviously, there's been a lot of talk about, head about head. We shouldn't be heading the ball, and because it leads to things like dementia, and there's a lot. Obviously, there's a lot of hearsay about it at the moment. But again, unless you experience it,
Mhm.
unless you experience these injuries, you're not really going to give it a second thought. But I suppose it's opened your eyes up a bit now, I guess, in terms of, do you
Yeah.
really want to continue doing that? And again, going back to sacrifice, you know, having suffered 2 concussions, how many more of those, I guess, is it going to take before you can't
Well,
do that anymore? And I guess it sort of starts getting you thinking about the next step in terms of after your playing career, I guess, right?
yeah, and when you kind of think about that, like it is scary, and it's something that's put me out of football last season, and to be
Mm.
honest, partially put me out of preseason this year with Wexford and going into the upcoming season. Now, not the exact concussion, but I've actually wrote a piece for Wexford as well, and just about the protocols and concussion and in relation to effects from it. But um, it was very traumatic for me. I For the first 1 or 2 weeks, yeah, I started to come around. It was a scary experience, but I started to come around. Everything was okay again. Yeah, I was getting headaches here and there, and I
Yeah,
was had to get an MRI and all the things that go with it. But it was probably a little bit later on, maybe after 4 or 5 weeks, that the decline started to happen. Because some people might understand that when they might hear it, some people look at it as PTSD, as post-traumatic stress
yeah,
disorder. And for me, that was an impact that kicked in for me. Obviously, having dealt with mental health in the past, it kind of reoccurred. Um, and yeah, it's been very tough up to this date. It put me, like, I'm not saying I'm not saying I'm not saying like I suffer from the thoughts of going back playing football and getting a bang in the head. That's not my main concern. Um, it's the stuff that was all brought up from maybe my past with my mental health, my current mental health, because I do suffer. Look, it's um it's a thing a lot of people do, and
it's
to be
common.
honest, yeah, it's very common, and it's just as common as physical injuries. And
100%.
it's another thing, unless you experience it, maybe people mightn't understand. But yeah, it's something I wouldn't wish on anybody. But yeah, it's a thing that I wanted to talk about because it's real, like, and
Yeah, oh god, yeah.
yeah, and I think it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's in, no matter if you're doing wonders in life or if you're at your lowest point, like, people don't really see it. And unless you tell them, they
Well,
don't know.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
exactly. Do you know what? It's funny. It's funny you say that because I was listening to the High Performance podcast yesterday, and one of the things that they said was, it was you see your friend, and the first thing you say is, "How are you? You okay?" And everyone's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, everything's okay." 'Cause it's a
Yeah,
common thing, isn't it? It's like, "Oh yeah, mate, how are you?" Yeah, 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 I'm fine. But then underneath, you sort of look around thinking, "Well, I don't really want to, but I don't." Because you almost, I've been there myself. You almost feel like you're going to burden the other person, because unless someone asks you twice and sort of pokes you a little bit, you're not going to get the information out, because it's okay. So, are you all right? Yeah, 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 I'm all right. But are you really all right? Well, I am 90% of the time, but there is this that's concerning me. All right, well,
yeah,
let's sit down. And like you say, I mean, it takes a lot of courage to admit when there is a problem, but ultimately, obviously, unfortunately, there is a higher percentage of mental health problems with men and with athletes at the moment, as we're finding with the Heads Up campaign, which the FA have highlighted quite really well over the last sort of 12 months
Yeah,
with Prince William. And I think I guess the biggest take home here is don't be afraid to say that it's okay not to be okay, and don't
yeah,
feel like you're being weak for admitting that there's a problem, because if anything,
yeah,
you are the one that's being more courageous, because you're the one that's wanting to make the difference to yourself, because ultimately, if anything, if the mental health gets to the point where it's having such a bad effect that the unfortunate happens, it's not just yourself. Well, obviously, it's going to have an impact on your friends, your family, the community. To everybody who's had a part of your life, it has that big effect, and it is so important that we do acknowledge it. And in terms of support, I mean, do you feel? I mean, where did you go for your support? Was it predominantly friends and family, or did you get the support from the club and the league and the governing
um,
body?
yeah, it's been a bit of everywhere. Like obviously, friends and family have been very good. It's maybe like with mental health, there's different areas people suffer, and so whether you want to go into really the details of it, it's it's personal. It's up to you. But yeah, I talked to some friends about it. Some players that I used to play with, who are very good. Family obviously is brilliant. The club itself, very understandable. They literally have given me my run of things and what way and how I feel like I'm always welcome back there, no matter good,
That's good.
bad, whatever the circumstances are. And then obviously there's only so much people can do, but
Yeah.
I had to make the sacrifice then to go get the help, and I had to go to hospital for 3 months during the pandemic, um, which was quite tough because you could have no visitors, you could have no days home, no weekends home. These were all things you could do in the past because obviously there was no virus.
Sure.
So yeah, that was very difficult, and that was only probably before Christmas. I came home before Christmas.
Jeez, that is tough, and obviously you've come out of it stronger, because obviously I'd like to say you're stronger, because when we've had the brief chats through Insta and briefly before, and everything seems good, but how would you describe how you are at the moment? Would you say that you're feeling? Obviously, you say that you feel like to think that you're mentally strong.
Look,
Do you feel stronger for that experience?
oh, definitely, yeah, definitely, 100%. Like you're dealing with, it's like anything. Like I deal with professionals in my area of playing football,
Hmm.
um, and I dealt with professionals in their area of whether it's psychology, whether it's therapy, whether it's counseling, whatever it may be. So you get the best help you need, and you take them tools away with you, and you try do your best, and it's very slow. It's a very slow process. It's the one thing I will say to people that do do struggle. I think it's you have to be really patient. Like even at this minute, I know you asked me how am I doing now. Yeah, not great, but
Wow.
it's it's a thing that I know that I'm not walking around with my hands on my head like I was 4 months ago. So
Yeah.
I know there's a progression there, and I know it'll progress in another 4 months.
And that's the key thing. You know that something positive is going to happen, and touch upon another key word of patience, and being able to acknowledge the fact that things do take time is another key element of getting through life in general. Whether
Yeah,
it's a case of you're just trying to boost your fitness levels up, you're trying to write a book, you're trying to do a bodybuilding competition, trying to get that move to earn that big wage. It is a slow process, and this is one thing kind of that a lot of people don't get, is because everyone expects everything to happen just by clicking the fingers. but there's an old saying, isn't it? The old cliche of good things happen to those who wait. But
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
same time, how long are you willing to wait to get that? And sort of what things can you put in place, or what things are you putting in place right now to sort of take those next steps forward?
Yeah, well, like I'm kind of, as I said, I'm kind of taking it day by day, and having been out of work and football and pretty much everyday life for a period of time, I was first and foremost looking after my health.
Mm,
That came number one. Um, and then I just started to look at maybe what do I want to do going forward as a career. I'm 25 now. I'm going to have to look at something and weigh up my football in the middle of all that. And what makes me happy. Obviously, if I have to take a step back in football, so be it. I will take a step back if it's to benefit my health and obviously have a good working career going forward. Um, that's just something that, yeah, it just people have to make the decision and do and be confident. So at the minute, I'm looking at college in September.
right.
It'd be great to go back play League of Ireland. Don't get me wrong, because it's always been a big ambition of mine and play at the highest level possible.
Still young, mate.
But
You're still young.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And it is something that maybe I'm a little bit hard on myself with as well. Like it's like, it's I'm need to make this decision
Yeah.
now. But like having went through the experience I've went through the last couple of months, you do really realize what is important. And it's very basic stuff.
Yeah, mate, 100%. And that's another key element. We keep touching on so many key elements, and there's going to be so many take homes for the listeners for this, because there's so many life lessons to draw off this just from what you've experienced within the last year, and it's great that you've got the focus to return back to college, and you've still got the vision of going back playing, but you're willing to take the step back to make two steps forward, because ultimately
Yeah,
one thing that a lot of athletes don't do is they don't plan for the future until the day they get released, or till the day that the contracts comes to an end. And I think that's where, unfortunately, a lot of people struggle um, after coming out of their sport, because it's really hard to. I mean, I've experienced it myself with the coaching side. Once you come out of football, unless you've got somebody that's in a position that is going to benefit you, it's really hard to get back in there. So you really need to be
yeah,
headstrong in terms of what you enjoy, what do you want for yourself in order to sort of progress forwards. And yeah, I think that it's really really important that people understand that.
yeah.
But no, it's great. I mean, in terms of sort of future plans, I mean, what sort of things would you like to do sort of going forward? Would you look? I think we look. Do we talk about coaching at some point?
Yeah, like I'm doing my badges at the minute. Like you can do a couple of them online, so I'm doing them through the FAI at the minute online. So I definitely, yeah, have a massive interest in coaching. I'd like to give back, kind of maybe a bit of knowledge, anything that'd help players, younger or older. I've done a bit of coaching the last couple of years, just here and there with my local club and stuff. But yeah, kind of going down the route of maybe my experience with my mental health. That's the route I'm looking to go down in a working career. So that's the kind of way I'm going about college.
That's good.
So yeah, I look at, even though I'm still young, and I know some people, they kind of see it at different stages of their life, and they're like, I need to change this, what I'm doing, in order for me to be happy. I need to change that. Like, yeah, I there was probably a stage there at 18, 19, 20 that I didn't see it then. But
Mm,
whereas I do see it now, um, I have to say to myself, don't be too hard on yourself. Look,
yeah,
um, you cannot turn back time. You
no,
know, you kind of have to. and a big thing I took from obviously the experiences was you have to really live in the now, and
Yeah.
it's a big thing. Some people are catastrophizing about things maybe in a month's time, in a year's time. I want this, I want that. In maybe 2 years' time, 5 years' time, but you really have to live in the moment, and I think that's a big thing, and I think a lot of people forget about that.
100%, mate. I totally agree, and that comes with having a clear vision as to what you want to achieve, and again, being
Yeah,
honest and open with yourself. But in terms of obviously not knowing what you wanted to know back when you were 20, that it comes with life, doesn't it? And when you work it, focus on the here and now as opposed to 2 or 3 months, years down the line. There's a difference between being ambitious and a difference between putting the pressure on yourself. Because obviously, if you start stressing about what's going to happen in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, that's when anxiety is going to really kick in. And
mm,
like you say, it's like you correctly say, it's so important to focus on the here and now, and and affect what, or sorry, and action what you can affect now. What's going to have the biggest impact on you now that's going to then move you forward? And I think that's super super important, because so many people do get, and that's how people get overwhelmed, isn't it? Because they just
yeah,
think that they need to. I'd love to go and manage at a professional club, and build upon myself, but I know realistically it ain't going to happen for a long time. I'd love the
mm,
podcast to be a number one bestseller, but we're not there yet. So
yeah, 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 of
it is
course.
just sort of taking those small, again, another word that keeps popping up, the small steps, isn't it? one small
Yeah, yeah. And
one
that's
small
that's
step at
what
a time.
that's what it is like, and that's the reality of it. And I think it happens everywhere. And no matter how big or how big the personality of a person might be, a player and an icon in some people's heads, a role model, like it happens with them as well, and you see it
Yeah,
every single day. It's normal, like, and I remember someone told me a couple of months ago. They said, "Well, what would you do if you got a broken leg? You would probably rest,
yeah,
let
exactly.
it recover, and then get the healing behind it, the therapy behind it, whether it's physio, and yeah, then it could take a year, it could take more, and it's the exact same thing for your head. It
100%.
takes it takes time. Unfortunately, you just don't have a date.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah. But as long as
but
you've got that focal point that you're determined to get to that end goal,
yeah,
that's the winner, right?
yeah, exactly. That's it, and that comes with little small steps, and you just have to reflect on the really bad moments and the really bad days, and say to yourself, "Well, I have came on," and not be too hard on yourself. I think that's a big thing, and big thing for younger people at the moment is they're very hard on themselves, whether it's playing football, whether it's working, wanting to achieve these massive things, and obviously social media, you can't divide it, but it is having an impact on people, because there's these standards being set that are absolutely ridiculous, and very unachievable, in some cases.
Exactly. And that's the difference between knowing reality and make believe. And I suppose this is why a lot of people are coming off social media now, isn't it? Because of the negative impact it has, which it is a big, big shame. It is a big, big shame. But for anyone that's looking to progress into becoming an athlete, or to becoming the the best that they can be, what sort of golden rule would you say that you have to live by in order to achieve what you really want to achieve?
I think the biggest thing for me, and I didn't do it when I was younger. I only see it now, is you really have to look after yourself. You have to focus on yourself. You cannot let anything influence you otherwise. Um, in regards whether it's somebody maybe doing better than you elsewhere, um, and there might be a little bit of begrudgery there towards them, um, or whether, and that goes in any walk of life. I
Yeah,
really think if if you just focus on yourself and not look over your shoulder and not look behind you, and just put your head down and take it day by day, step by step, train hard, I think you'll go a long way, because it's when you get caught up in that little bubble um, of maybe wanting to have this kind of fantasy kind of lifestyle, you do actually kind of decline, and it's unfortunate, because it's not the person's fault, but it's just the stuff they're taking in from the outside. Maybe other people in the rears that they're listening to.
Yeah, no, that's great bit of advice, and no, I wholeheartedly agree with that, because it's so easy to be affected by other people's opinions. But Connor, I've really, really enjoyed the podcast. Thank you so much for being open and being honest and
Yeah.
sharing some of the what I think are golden life lessons in this. And thank you also for giving us an insight to the mental barriers and how you've overcome them in the last sort of 12 months in terms of personal and professionally. So credits to you for that. And it does take a lot of balls, and I can only know that from here on in it's going to be an upward journey for you. But for the guys that want to connect with you, and the girls, of course, where can they find you?
Look, I'm the main reason I came on was and I was a little bit up in the air. I was like 50-50, because obviously things are still not plain sailing. But I said, look, if even if it was to help one person, it's a benefit. You know what I mean? If it's a benefit to one person, like even out there, a young person, older person, whoever, um, it'd be brilliant. And that's my main goal behind this. But yeah, look, I'm anybody that wants to get in contact with me, I have no problem going into details with them of what struggles. I might even have stuff to help them, because I've got loads of stuff over the last couple of months, um, through my Instagram, through my Facebook, whatever it is. I genuinely don't mind. Like I'm, I'm quite grounded.
Yeah, you're seeing that, mate.
Yeah,
You're seeing that.
yeah.
You're not abnormal, so it's all good.
No, no, like yeah, look,
No, it's
I am
been
who I
brilliant.
am, yeah, look, I'd be happy to help anybody, really.
No, it's been brilliant. But Connor, thanks very much for your time, buddy. Really, really enjoyed it. And guys, I hope there's been lots of take homes from this episode. Leave some feedback in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And as always, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.